Hey guys!
Hey.
Hey!
What's up?
Hello. Hey guys.
I'm ready to play.
Daniel Drake here with my good friend Hank Gustafson.
Hey guys.
We are going to be doing a Let's Play of the board game Mercenarium, which is included as a part of Anthromancer. Anthromancer is a project we've been working on for about 5 years now, and it's going to be live on Kickstarter when this video drops. So if you haven't already checked the page out, please take a look at the description. We got a link there. We would love for you to take a look, back it, and share it with your friends if you think they'd be into it. Anthromancer is a bit of a layered, multifaceted experience, but it's built around the core components of a board game. Literally a board, a deck of special cards, and 3 unique dice. The game Mercenarium, which Hank and I are going to play, is a competitive strategy game, something like chess meets poker, with a little bit of magic thrown in. We are going to be playing a 2-player version. It is a 2 to 4 player game, but there's only 2 of us here right now, so it's a bit of a different experience with more players. It's certainly more thoughtful and less chaotic with 2 players.
It's very competitive, though.
Indeed. So the first thing you're going to do to set up for Mercenarium is you're going to separate the hymns from the rest of the deck. So there are 2 types of cards in the main deck when you get your copy of Anthromancer. There are hymns, which have Roman numerals and titles. They're kind of similar to the major arcana of tarot, if you're familiar with that. They stand out because they have those titles and those Roman numerals. There are 15 in total, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to separate them from the main deck. They also have these little blue icons on their card backs. It's a subtle distinction. Hank, do me a favor and shuffle those for me.
All right.
While you're doing that, I would also like to explain something. This game features a patent-pending novel mechanic called an orientation line. And so what that means is that the cards of the main deck, not the hymns, but these cards all have a black line on them. Let me see if you can see them in the over. They all have a black line on one of their edges. And what that line is used for is it denotes ownership during the game. So based upon where a player is seated, there's these 4 spaces on the board called houses, and each player is in control of one. It's like your free space, your house, your beginning. If there's a card on the board, you'll be able to tell which player owns it based upon the direction, the edge of that card that the orientation line is showing. So if this card is over here, this Jack of Claws, no matter what else is going on the board, you know that that card belongs to this player because it is parallel with my edge of the board. Now, during the course of the game, certain cards, face cards, jacks, queens, kings, and aces, can actually have their control taken. And so when that happens, the card will pivot around. The dots on the edges of each card indicate their combat strength, like how strong they are on that edge of the card. And so when they pivot, their strength changes, the board changes, and it changes the flow of the game. So that's the most important new mechanic you need to know before you get into Mercenarium, is that player seating and the orientation of the cards really matters. Mm-hmm. So once we've got the deck and the hymnal shuffled, let me shuffle this real quick, just once or twice. There we go. Once you get your player seating figured out, you got the deck shuffled. Every player starts the game with 5 cards from the deck and 1 hymn from the hymnal. So there's your 5 cards, Hank. There's the hymn. Now the hymns, I want to get into this before we start. We have these little quick reference cards here. Now Hank and I are very familiar with the game, so we probably won't be referring to this too much. But the quick reference card has the bulk of this text is the bulk of this text tells you what each hymn does. The hymns basically function like magic spells. Each one activates a unique power that lets you break the rules of the game in some small way. For instance, Hymn 5 Dragoon lets you take one of your cards and move it twice. It's the only card in the game that lets you get 2 captures on a turn. Hymn 9 The Shade lets you take one of your enemy's cards and move it anywhere else on the board. These are single-use hymns. They're single-use items, basically. Once you use one, it will usually end up in the discard pile or summoned onto the board or something like that. There's a couple hymns that actually get summoned onto the board. But then you might want to draw a new one, and we have like a whole stack of them to get through during the game, and that's part of it. So you remember which hymns were used, and so what could they have in their hand, that sort of thing. On this, there is a list of potential turn actions you can do every turn. And the flow of the game is much like lots of traditional strategy games. You get to do one thing. You can summon a card onto the board, so take it from your hand and put it onto the board. And when we get to that, I'll explain a little more of the limitations there. If you have a card on the board, you can move it, Every card moves the same. They all move one. They can move one space in any direction. So, except diagonal. You're not, because that counts as 2, right? So that would be 2 spaces. So if you have a card in the middle, you can move in any direction that you want as long as there is an open space for you to move into. If there is an enemy card adjacent to one of your cards, and you have more dots on your card's touching edge than their card does, you can actually move into their space, and that is a turn action called capturing a card. The object of the game is to be the first to 5 captures. So the point is to put cards on the board, move them around, and try and capture your enemy's cards. The 4th turn action on the card here is called Buying a Mercenary, and that's the name of the game, Mercenarium. Once you have earned captures, once a player has captured a card, I'll just grab one from the bottom here for an example. Let's just say that these are the cards, and it's my turn, and this is my 10. I can move into this space because there's 3 dots there, 2 dots there. I have the advantage. I can move in, capture that 8, and then I will place that card face down along my edge of the board. As long as I have face down cards along this edge of the board, these work as a kind of currency. I can actually flip that card face up. And if Hank has a, let's throw that down. If Hank has a mercenary on the board, a jack, queen, king, or an ace, and I have an unspent capture, as my turn action, I can flip that capture face up to spend it, and then designate a mercenary on the board that I do not already control, pivot it around, and then it becomes mine. And it can't be bought back for a full round. It's considered to be under contract for a full round after being bought or after being summoned. That's buying a mercenary. You can only spend your capture 1 time, but it still counts towards your 5 points for victory. First to 5 captures wins. This still counts as 1. I can only spend it once. It's flip face up, but it still counts towards victory. So there is a bit of a incentive to be the first person to get a capture because it gives you a leg up. The 5th turn action is called Singing a Hymn. That's just activating whatever hymn card you were dealt at the beginning of the game. And as I said before, they are listed here on the quick reference card. As you play the game, you get to know them, and then you don't need to use the references often. And it's part of the joy of it. But yes, each one has different effects, and you will, as you get better at the game, you will start to try and predict which effects your opponent could have. Once you've used your hymn, you will probably not have one. You can only hold 1 at a time, but you can get new hymns from the hymnal in exchange for making what we call an offering. And on the quick reference card here, there's a little menu. It says Learn Hymn. This is the offering list, like what you have to sacrifice in order to draw a new hymn. You can't just let people draw them for free. It'd be crazy. Your acceptable offerings include 2 through 9 cards, so lower number cards, from your hand, discarding 2 of those cards from your hand. You can discard 1, 10, jack, queen, king, ace, or lord. We'll explain lords when they come up later. You can spend a capture to learn a new hymn. Or if you don't like the one you have, or it just isn't useful and you think there's a more useful one in there, you can take your current hymn and make any of those other offerings in tandem with it. So discard the hymn and any other card or spend a capture, and you can draw a new hymn. And the last turn action is just drawing a card. If you have nothing else that you want to do, you can just draw a single card from the main deck. If you already have 5 non-hymn cards in your hand, like your base hand, your starting hand, you have to discard a card first, but you don't have to discard any one in particular. Just get rid of the one you don't want, draw a new one. You do have to discard it first though. You don't discard it after you see the new card. Those are all the turn actions. Anything else we can get to when it comes up. So let me just go ahead and put these back in here. Shuffle this one more time. All right. So the very first thing we're going to do to get started is we're going to roll dice to see who goes first. Now these are prototype dice. When these are finally manufactured, there will be the little symbols in the place of 6s, but those symbols still count as 6s for purposes of turn order. Ready?
Yep. All right, you go.
It's me. I go first.
Sometimes I like that.
Generally, the first thing you're going to do in a game of Mercenarium is summon a card. Your house counts as your free space, so to speak. There are no limitations on what card you can put in your house, assuming there's not already a card occupying that space. So, I'm gonna do. I'll do this. And then it'll go to Hank's turn.
Alright, well, the first thing I did when I got my cards handed to me is when you're a new person playing this, you want to make sure that you rotate all your cards in your hand with that orientation line at the south of your cards. because I've seen people play a card in the wrong orientation. And that can be a mistake.
Yeah, if you don't have your cards oriented properly in your hand, you'll think that they're stronger in a direction that they actually aren't. So yeah, actually that bears repeating. Please mind that when I summoned this card, that black orientation line is oriented towards my edge of the board. And it will always be in that orientation so long as I control that card. That's how people know who controls which card. So if I have this in my hand, I cannot summon it like that or like that, even though maybe I want the dots to be in that orientation. It's just not how the card works. It's very important that you summon your cards in the proper orientation.
All right, I'm going to play a 2 of gears.
Okay. So once you have cards on the board, you can still summon. There's 2 types of summoning in Mercenarium. There's house summoning and there's field summoning. House summoning is the free space. You can place any card of any face value in your house so long as it is properly oriented. Field summoning is when you summon into empty spaces that are adjacent to cards you already control. Now there's some limitations to that. Today we're going to be playing with the Mercenarium Pro variant, in which we're basically following traditional poker rules, where the sequence, or the rules for summoning into an adjacent space are that the card needs to be either the same suit, the same face value, or a consecutive face value, meaning that I can play a 4, 5, or 6 adjacent to this 5, or I can play a gear, this is the 5 of gears, or, yeah, right. I can play a 4, 5, or 6, or I can play a gear. I can also play a lord. Lords are a new face value, and they work a little funny. Essentially, the way lords work is that until you play them, they are considered to have every face value. So they can be summoned adjacent to any card you control. But once they're on the board, they become lords, and lords are not consecutive with any face value, so you can only summon cards of that lord's suit next to it, or other lords. If that comes up, we'll explain it again. But so it's my turn, and I am going to...
What you gonna do?
Field summon that 5.
Okay. Alright. I'm going to move up and see what you do.
All right.
This turn.
I am now going to, as my turn action, sing my hymn. I was dealt the Fool.
Oh boy.
The Fool is the Fool and the Fox are the only 2 hymns that actually end up summoned onto the board. They're considered to have the face value of a lord, so they work like lords, meaning I can summon it adjacent to any card I have. Once it's on the board, it becomes a lord. The Fool doesn't share suits with any other cards, so I can only summon lords adjacent to it. The way the Fool works is that one of these dice, the white one, is called the Fool die. When you summon the Fool, whoever summoned it rolls the Fool die and then sets the die on the card. I got 3. 3 becomes the Fool's aura, meaning that you can consider it to have 3 dots on every edge. If I want to, I can re-roll that die as my turn action when it's my turn again. And if I make a capture with the Fool, I have to re-roll it. If that die lands on, it's a 6, but on the final version it will be a little sphere icon, then all capture interactions with the Fool are turned into what we call an Annihilation. I suppose now is a good time to talk about alchemy.
Yeah.
So, the Fool is an interesting card. We have this little diagram here in the top right corner of the quick reference card that basically tells you what happens if 2 cards have the same number of dots on their touching edges and you want to know who beats who. Each suit has an advantage, a disadvantage, and a card that they annihilate with. So if it threatens, if it consumes, if it has the advantage, even if they're tied, you can capture with, for instance, if I have a blade that is tied with an opponent's claw, I can capture that because blades capture claws. But if they have a gear that's tied with my blade, they can capture me. If they're across the suit wheel, they can do what's called an annihilation, meaning that either player can initiate that annihilation, in which case both cards are discarded from play and nobody gets any captures. And if they're the same suit, they do what's called deadlocking, or they block each other. The Fool always blocks or deadlocks in ties. So if I were to have rolled a 1, we couldn't capture each other.
There's really no way I could win this.
but I have a 3, so right, like I can't move the fool this turn, but
Yeah.
I am now threatening Hank's 2.
Yeah, the Fool's an interesting card.
So
It's
it's
a
your
risky
turn.
card, but it paid off for that roll. So, you know what? I'm going to activate my him.
What you got there, Hank?
It's the Shade.
Oh
So
boy.
Shade allows me to move any enemy card, and the Fool is now considered a card on the board. Anywhere but a house on the board. So I'm going to throw it somewhere away from me, which is usually a corner, if it's threatening me.
All right.
That buys me a little bit of time.
Okay. So now I'm not threatening him anymore. Let's go ahead and I am going to take my turn. I'm going to take this Queen of Souls and I'm going to discard it as an offering to draw a hymn. So now I get to draw a hymn. And I will tuck that into my hand. I'm not sure if you can see on the overhead, but I like to turn my hymns sideways and tuck them up against the rest of my hand so that just their title is showing. Pro gamer tip.
I throw down a 9 on my 2 because of the same suit. And now I threaten your 5. And pass turn there.
I'm going to move my 5 out of threat.
Interesting. That was the right way to move. I'm hoping you would go. I don't know why.
So the strategy of Mercenarium is really looking at the strengths and weaknesses of each of your cards, because every card, based on their suit and based on their face value, has a certain number of dots arranged in a certain pattern. Generally, it's a counterclockwise descending order. So they'll have a strong direction, and then it gets weaker as you go around the card. So when Hank put that 9 down there, I can look at my card and look at his card, and I can see that he is weak on this side of his card. And I'm strong on this side, so what I want to do is I want to try and maximize my chances that he'll waste a turn or miss a turn or something, or do something so that I can come over here and flank him.
And I'm not going to move up because of that. If he would have gone this way, which, you know, an amateur move maybe, I would be able to threaten 2 cards and guarantee myself almost a capture.
Unless I had some kind of, because there are certain hymns that you can set traps for people.
Yeah,
right?
if Dan did that, I would know he had something up his sleeve.
Yes, right. You'd be like, well, Dan knows how to play this game.
All right, so my turn, and I'm going to use my turn to discard 2 number cards here and draw a hymn.
I am going to activate my hymn.
Oh, no.
I drew Dragoon,
Ooh.
which lets you take one of your cards in play and move it twice, which can be a very powerful technique, specifically because every card moves at the same speed, so it's like I get 2 turns in a row. I'm going to move my 5 up once, and then I'm going to move over, and I'm going to capture his 9. Put it face down. Now, the 2 of gears and the 5 of claws here, we're not threatening each other. We can annihilate one another. So for me, that's a good move because I get a capture, and if he wants to annihilate, that's fine. I got my capture. He doesn't get...
There goes my plan. All right.
I did not mention this yet, but I think I ought to. There is another way, there's a second way to win. And the second way to win is to eliminate all of your opponent's cards from the board and then occupy their house. If that happens, if there's ever a situation where they have no cards on the board and an enemy card is in their house, in a 2-player game, they have 1 turn to use a hymn, buy a mercenary, do something to get back onto the board or to clear their house. And if they can't, the game's over. It's kind of like a checkmate. We call it limbo. A limbo elimination.
I have 1 turn to do something, and if I can't, it's over. So this is interesting. Face off here. I could kill myself to kill his card, or see what he does and use this time to draw a card, which is what I'm going to do.
I'm going to advance the Fool.
I'm going to throw down the 10 claws, so you go ahead.
There we go. Moving forward. So, I see that Hank has that 10 out there, and if he advances it towards the 5, he'll be threatening me. I can move the 5 to keep pace with his 2 and avoid the 10's threat on the next turn, or I can move the Fool over. Because this now, if he tries to threaten that 5, I can capture that 10 with the Fool. So I'm thinking a couple turns ahead. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Playing Seasons. Which I can attach to a 10, right?
Yeah.
I attached it to it, and now I can orient it any way I want, as long as I keep that card face down towards me. Well, not face down, with the wording towards me.
So attaching a card is you can attach a hymn to another card by just tucking it under so that only the hymn's title is visible. Effectively, the title becomes the new orientation line of that card. So now that card has a superpower that lets Hank rotate it into any direction that is favorable to him as his turn action.
That's what I'm going to do.
That makes sense.
And that card is a note here. That card is probably the most powerful on a 10 because you cannot attach it to face cards.
Yeah, you can't put it on. Mercenaries they have higher combat values, but you can't attach Seasons to a mercenary. So, yeah, that's a very advantageous move. And the cool thing about the Seasons hymn, and the Fool as well, is that once they're on the board, since they're not in your hand, you can keep drawing new hymns. So in a way, it's like you have more than one hymn. It stacks with other hymns you have. Okay, I'm going to draw... Ooh, I don't know. Draw a card.
So again, with the Fool, if we are tied, we just annihilate, right? Or is it a deadlock?
It would be a deadlock, a block.
Yeah, a block. Okay, cool. I am not currently threatened, so I'm going to do what Dan did and draw a card.
As am I. He smirk. I don't like that.
I'm just thinking, sometimes there's plays where you can see what they'll do, what your opponent will do, and I might just do it for fun.
What do we got?
Let's see. Okay. I know what you'll do, though. Never mind. I know what you'll do. You know what? I'm going to do this. Just because I've been thinking too hard about this card. And now it's gone. So I just annihilated that card because we were both tied.
My plans. Okay. I will discard 2 number cards and draw a new hymn.
Okay.
I'm going to activate my hymn. I'm going to sing Zodiac.
Oh boy.
Zodiac has its own die. We have the Zodiac die here. It's a 12-sided die. And the way the Zodiac works is that it is the 13th hymn, and the 12 hymns beneath it can be randomly generated with the 12-sided Zodiac die. So we're going to roll this. So when I sing the hymn, it's going to show up off the board, and I will roll this die, and I can activate whatever I roll right away, or I can save it, activate it on a later turn, or as my turn action, re-roll it and activate that. So it's pretty powerful. It's the only hymn that lets you redo a hymn that's already been used. Let's see what we got. The Shade.
Yeah.
That doesn't help me that much since you can just rotate your card. So I'm just going to hold on to it.
And now mentally I know he has that.
Yeah, now,
a lot of moves I make.
Now it's just sort of looming, which is kind of fun. I do want to note, while the Fool and the Fox and Seasons and cards that are hymns that are on the board do not count as being in your hand, Zodiac does count as being in your hand. So this still counts as me holding a hymn. You decided it would make it a little too powerful if you could have this and another hymn.
One thing I will say too is, because I almost had Zodiac cannot roll the numbers for the Fool and the Fox, so you cannot have 2 Fools out there.
Right.
It's only the first 12. Let's see. I'm gonna just try something here. I'm gonna put this out. Jack of Gears there, threatening your 5. Okay, I see.
So I put the king down so that it's protecting the 5. We refer to that unofficially as putting down insurance.
It's my turn to rotate. Now I have a 4 facing his 3. I will say the Fool has made this beginning of the game very interesting.
I'm going to activate the shade. And I'm going to move your seasons right there.
Great.
My thinking is that that'll make Hank have to sweat a little bit because Seasons is a really valuable card. You don't want to risk losing it, but there's no way he can rotate that right now where it won't be threatened from either the Fool or my king. So he can move it away, which should give me some space to breathe.
I have a proposition.
Interesting.
What a crazy corner we have right there.
Really is.
Can I protect that? Can I protect him?
I'm really kind of hoping that one day we can have televised tournaments of this.
Oh, internet, man. Be bigger anyway.
Oh, that's TV.
Yeah, I guess so. Fair enough.
MeTube.
Okay, so mentally I'm thinking here, I gotta just go ahead and take the capture at the 5, because I'm just trying to protect cards at this point. And having a capture is valuable, especially because he has a king, which is a mercenary I could potentially buy if I have a capture. Or I could rotate my 10 and protect that jack and be threatened by the king, but I'm protected by my ace. There's a lot going on here.
You gotta make a decision.
It's interesting because having seasons in play, I have this rotating card that I could just keep rotating. But the thing is, sometimes you get a capture. You got to give a capture to get a capture. You're one ahead, but you're not too far ahead. I'm going to take the 5.
Often, yeah, having a capture is valuable, if only because there's a lot of situations it can get you out of. All right, so I can either take that, or I can
move up.
Keep the pressure on you.
Yeah.
But that ace is really helping you out.
Yeah. But
You can now buy that king.
yeah.
Well, I will go ahead and take the capture. Take it while the getting's good.
No.
You're up, Hank.
Protect myself a little bit. Not really. Yeah. Just protecting myself. At least from one side.
I'm going to go and threaten that 10.
Oh boy.
I shouldn't have done that, but whatever. I shouldn't have said I shouldn't have done that, because now you're going to be like, oh, where's the flaw in his strategy?
There's... I mean, it would just be moving around, I see. I'm gonna... I mean, yeah.
I'm going to spend a capture. Buy a hymn.
Boat.
Learn a hymn.
Oh, really? See, that's the interesting part about the hymns is I don't know what you drew. It could ruin my life or not.
This is interesting. This is turning into a very interesting game. I'm going to sing the fox. So the fox has its own die. And the way the fox works, I've gotten all the dice cards 3 times in a row.
You did.
So the way the fox works is that it comes out with the fox die set to 5. So the fox die is more of a counter, a countdown, than the fool die is random. Basically the way the fox works is that every turn that I have it in play, at the start of my turn, I'm going to reduce this by 1. On the last turn, it's going to turn to 6, which in the final version will be the Seed of Life icon. There's a lot of sacred geometry in here. While the fox is in play, it is unbeatable in combat. It moves at the same speed as every other card, but it can't be captured in any normal way, and it beats everybody in capture interactions. So it's very powerful. You can only have it for 5 turns. On that last turn, when that Seed of Life icon is showing, I can swap it with a card from my hand and then discard the fox. So I don't like swap it out, but I can basically make it transform into a card that I have in my hand. So it's a very interesting, very dynamic card. It seems more powerful than it is. A lot of people read that it's unbeatable and they think, oh my gosh, but every card moves at the same speed, so you have to think strategically if you're going to get any captures with it. So like right now, I'm not threatening anything because, I mean, I could have put it here, but that would have left him open to capture my king right away. And I could have captured his ace, but, you know, it becomes sort of like, do I want to keep it there? Do I want to leave it there until it can, turn into something else? So that's my turn, summoning the fox. I have the fool and the fox. This should be an achievement.
Yeah. It shouldn't be, though. Okay. I mean, the thing is, right now, I have no way to escape from that corner without getting something captured, unless you, for some reason, don't move it. So I might as well get a capture in here. Or... do that.
Afraid you might do that. It's a very good move. Okay. So now I have 2 of my cards threatened. And the fox isn't really helping me out here. So I can try and roll the fool.
That's a risk. So
it would be a 33%. 33% chance that it won't be something that'll, well, it could be an Annihilation.
Yeah, you're right.
Or it could be 4 or 5. So it's 50%. 50% chance that I won't get something that screws me over. But this is why we call it the fool. Because if I roll the die and it screws me over, it's like I lose a turn and he gets a capture anyway.
Yeah. Description.
Let's do it. Name of the game, right? Well, actually, the name of the game is Mercenarium, but whatever. It's the fool. We're here to live life. What are we gonna get? You gonna smile on me, fate? No, it is not. Hank, it's your turn.
I don't know what to do.
Right. Oh, I did it.
Now it's your turn.
Now it goes
down.
to 3.
So I captured the fool. Dice goes back.
Oh my gosh. Well, he's gonna get that king, so I'm just gonna cut my losses here and threaten 2 cards at once. He can only possibly save one of them unless he has.
We're about to be tied.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's a fun game. When you tied. But now I'm in a house.
This goes to 2.
And how many turns do you have to get up to that house?
No, it's fine. Remember, it transforms.
Oh, yes, you're right. Please just transform into a...
Change into a truck. Your turn. Interesting.
All right, so I can draw a card.
The fool is the only hymn that can end up as a capture.
Correct.
So you drew a card, so this goes down to 1. Do I want to waste any of my time doing stuff with that?
Nope, now it's just basically a summoning beacon in a way.
Gonna draw a card.
Yeah, so when there's a moment in this game, for sure, especially because you saw how chaotic the last couple turns were, I have the time to draw a card where I'm not threatened, I'm going to do it. And I just did, so it is your turn.
That's going to go to the Seed of Life icon. I'm going to transform it into the Jack of Claws. No, that's not a great... Yeah, I'll do it. I'll transform it into the Jack of Claws.
Oh, so you have a good
Mercenaries are under contract for one full round after you summon them. So unless Hank has the Avarice Hymn, which could really screw me over right now, he can't buy this mercenary that I just summoned until the next turn.
You know I don't have any hymns, right? But I do. This doesn't help me either one. I'm gonna discard. I can do a 10, right, for him?
Yes. I am going to summon the Lord of Blades, adjacent to the Jack. So as I said, Lords have all face values until they're summoned, at which point they only count as Lords and their suit. So I can summon Blades next to that Lord, and I can summon other Lords next to that Lord, but nothing else.
Yep. So buying that Jack would be...
Now it would be a bad move, because I could capture it right away. So we haven't had a Lord on the board yet. Let me explain it. Lords, you'll notice, don't have any dots. They don't have an aura, which is what we call the dots. They have no aura. Rather than doing combat based on the number of dots they have, instead they do combat based on their suit, based on their alchemy, so to speak. And so Blades beat Claws in ties. Blades have an advantage over Claws. So the Lord of Blades can capture any claw, no matter what dots it's showing. It can capture any claw. And likewise, it can be captured by any gear, because Blades are weak against gears. So I put down the Lord of Blades. I was very glad I drew that card, because not only does that protect me from him buying that Jack, I can also come down here and threaten that 10 if I want to. Because no matter what card, no matter what value he turns that Seasons card to, I can capture it with the Lord of Blades.
It's my turn.
Yes.
I'm going to put down a 9 of souls.
Well, that's just great.
I was able to summon the 9 on the 10. Luckily.
All right, we'll do it this way. Lord have mercy. What am I getting myself into here?
I don't know, but I'm liking it.
Oh, jeez. You can't win on camera, Hank. I made this game.
I helped you.
You did.
I know your secrets.
You know my secrets. Okay.
It's like smog. I know
All
the
right.
hole for the arrow.
Well, we're here to have fun. I'm gonna buy a hymn.
Oh, okay. Cool. But
Son of a biscuit. You would. Okay. All right.
I don't know what hymn you have.
Yeah.
If it was Optimo, I'm sure you'd be optimally happy. And I don't know.
I'm going to discard my currently held hymn and spend my last capture to get a new hymn. Because if you'd tried to capture the other one, that would have helped.
Yeah.
So, real quick, let me
show them what
I want
they
to show
meant.
them. So, if we had the board like this, and Hank had moved to capture the Jack, so Meat War is a really interesting hymn. It's the only hymn that plays out of turn. You basically, you announce that you're using it when an enemy moves to make a capture. And it doesn't have to be your card they're capturing if you're playing in a 3 or 4 player game. If you're holding Meat War and somebody besides you is trying to capture, you can say, hey, Meat War. And what'll happen is whatever capture interaction is taking place, you can transform it into an Annihilation. So it destroys their card and denies them a capture. So if he had tried to capture my Jack, I could have said, Meat War. They both would have gone to the discard pile. He wouldn't have gotten a capture, and then I would have been, I would have passed my next turn, but I would have had a much stronger board state because you can't buy a Lord like you can a Mercenary. Instead, Hank triggered an Annihilation, got rid of these 2 cards, and so now I can't, basically, if he buys that Jack, it's under contract and I can't buy it back. So that's why I think it's worth it to spend my last hymn to buy a card, because it might be the only thing that saves me.
And really
spend
quick,
my last capture to buy
the great part about this game is, yes, I had available capture. But there's a lot going on in this game. So if you were new to the game, you'd be like, oh, free capture. Yeah, which would have bit me in the butt.
Yep, he got me.
And I wasn't thinking he had Meat War, I just have other things in mind. I'm gonna buy his Jack.
Okay, I'm gonna activate my hymn. It's the only thing that's keeping me in. I drew Optimo, which is one of the few things that could help me in this situation.
I'm about to say, that's a good...
Right now, I'm in quote-unquote limbo. If I can't get out of limbo on this turn, meaning get a card on the board, excuse me, or open my house, then I lose. Hank wins. He just bought that Jack, and I don't have any more captures to spend, so I can't buy that Mercenary to stay in the game. So I had to get a hymn that could help me, and fortunately I did. I got Optimo. The way Optimo works is that I can take all cards that are within 2 spaces of my house. So if this is my house, it's kind of like this weird zigzag pyramid here. These spaces, any card that's in those spaces, I can rearrange them as I see fit. I can't change their ownership, but I can move them around. So I can take his 10 and say, well, we'll put him over here.
Look at that Jack is not in that zone. It's just out of it. Just out of it.
And that'll buy me about 1 turn. Your turn.
I'm gonna just...
I have no cards in my hand. I have no cards on the board. I need to draw the right card.
I'm going to use my turn to rotate.
It's closing in on me, the pincers.
Move to your house.
I am going to discard a face card to draw a hymn.
I'm going to attach Druid to the Jack.
Oh, jeez.
Your turn.
I'm going to discard my currently held hymn, Avarice, and my last single card.
I've done it twice now.
So Avarice is a hymn that basically lets me buy any mercenary on the board, even if it's under contract, without spending a capture, which I could have used to buy Jack, except Hank put Druid on it, which means that I can't buy it. It can't be bought. It's devoted. It's the Druid. So now Avarice is useless to me, so I'm going to discard that and try to draw... Oh no.
I'm moving in your house.
That's game. I drew Arcanum, which only works if I have a card on the board.
Good game.
That was a very good game. I enjoyed that a lot.
That was a fun game.
Yeah, that was cool. There's a lot of synergy with the hymns. It was a very good showcase game so that people can see what this game is really about.
Oh, there's a lot going on.
And you didn't win with 5 captures, which is great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All the cards attached. We got the Zodiac, we got the Fool, the Fox. That's great.
I made risky moves of not taking captures when I can, but
sometimes
that's why the hymns are interesting, because you never know what someone has.
They keep it really interesting. Well, that was beautiful. Awesome. So that is how you play a basic game of Mercenarium. Like I said, we were using the Mercenarium Pro rules. I'm very tempted to make that just the main game rules, honestly.
It is, if you're a competitive person in a board game, it is the more...
satisfying, thoughtful.
Strategic, yeah.
Yeah, let's separate the hymns. So, that was a very satisfying game. But there are other things that didn't really come up. There's a lot of, like, every game is a little bit different, and we've tried to think about everything that could happen and make it more interesting. So one of the things that didn't happen that could happen is that if, and it's especially more likely in 4-player games because you have more people drawing from the deck, but if the main deck ever runs out of cards, the game enters sort of a, kind of like a sudden death mode. We call it Singularity. And in Singularity, what you do is you take all of the unused hymns and all of the cards in the discard pile, once the deck is empty, shuffle them all into one big deck, and eliminate hand restrictions and offerings. So if a hymn shows up on the top of the deck like that, everybody around the table sees it and knows that they can draw it for free, even if they already have one, even if they have 15 cards in their hand. They can draw that hymn. And so it really, like, if the game starts to drag on, it just kind of pours some gasoline on the fire.
It's like Smash Brothers with all the items on full.
Yeah, it gets a little crazy.
Have whatever you want.
And people start sacrificing strategic moves just so they can be the one that draws the hymn and denies it to their opponents. And that can make people sloppier, it can make the game end faster. In the event that the Singularity deck runs out, the game ends in a draw. Just everybody, it's just a universal draw. Everybody, we call it a Singularity stalemate. There are also stalemates. Stalemates are characterized by, let's just take 2 cards at random here. That'll work. So let's say that's my card, that's Hank's card, and for whatever reason, Hank needs 1 more capture to win the game, and I move, and then he moves, and then I move, and then he moves, and then I move again. We use some really technical jargon in the manual, but basically, like, if you find yourself in the same position three turns later, having been threatened by the same card each time, stalemate. The game ends in a stalemate because we could just do that forever.
Yeah, why would I move away? Why wouldn't he move away?
No, and well, usually it'll be like, well, I don't want to draw a card because I need to move away, but if I move that way, like it becomes sort of like this locked-in thing. So that's how stalemates work. And I don't know, I mean, everything else is like, no, not all of the hymns showed up. We didn't get Visionaire, we didn't get Primary, we didn't get Fire Eyes, but we did get a good selection of them. So
we got about 8 of them during the game.
Yeah, that was very cool.
All right, cool.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of, it's pretty simple at the core. The mechanics are very simple. It's pretty straightforward to explain to people at the core, but there's a lot of dynamic things that can happen, things that you might not expect, ways that the hymns sort of interact with each other, like the way that he put Druid on right before I was about to use Avarice to buy it, got denied. There's a really interesting sort of synergy going on there. So we're really proud of it, and we hope that you guys think it's cool, and we hope that you'll check out our Kickstarter and support it. And if you happen to watch this video after that succeeds and we're off making board games for people and stuff, we want you to check us out.
Make your own video of you playing.
Yeah, we would love to see it. And we'd love to see all the kinds of crazy things people are going to get up to with this. So, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow Anthromancer under the handle @Anthromancy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're also on YouTube. We got a ton of content on there. You're probably watching this on YouTube, probably. We also have, I do a video essay series about like the weird cryptic esoteric stuff going on here. We do dragon fruit readings. There's an ASMR dragon fruit reading series, and we also do them professionally. So if you happen to want somebody to do, you don't even know what a dragon fruit reading is. It's an oracle. It's like tarot. Like I can read your fortune with this. It's crazy. And we got a whole album of music to check out on Spotify. The hymns in the hymnal. The hymnal is actually a concept album you can listen to, and each one of those hymns has an associated song. So we also have instrumentals of them too that'll come with the game in the digital asset pack, so you can actually just listen to the music while you play if you want to.
So if you're watching this and the Kickstarter is still live and you haven't backed it, consider doing so. You could have a crazy game like we just had with your friends, and you could have it with 3 other people. Who knows?
That would be awesome.
4-player games get crazy as well.
Yeah, they're a completely different beast. So thanks for watching, guys. We hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we'll see you around.
Thank you. All right, cool.
Stop that.